In 1950, a 12-year-old black girl could do 20 things with her hands. Today, most grown adults can't do 3 without pulling out a phone. And number 1 isn't even a chore. It's the thing that made the other 19 possible. I've been going through archive photographs from the 40s, oral histories from the South, old church cookbooks. These weren't habits. This was the infrastructure that kept a family alive. And today, doctors, nutritionists, and economists keep arriving at the same conclusions. Number 20 has an exact date of death, 1951, and it was killed by the same company that made her dresses. Number 10 is sitting on your bathroom shelf right now. And number 3 moved real money, in cash, without a single bank. These things didn't disappear because the modern world took them. We handed them over ourselves, and nobody noticed the day they walked out the door. Number 20, the biscuits that never saw a measuring cup. 5 in the morning, 12 years old, saw flour in the wooden bowl, a well punched with her fist, lard the size of an egg, and buttermilk until the dough said stop. Work it too much, and the biscuits come out tough. There was never a measuring cup in that kitchen. The measure was her hands. But in 1931, a man in Kentucky patented dough packed in a cardboard tube and sold it to Ballard and Ballard. And in 1951, Pillsbury bought that company and put the tube in every grocery store in America. And here's the detail. Ballard and Ballard also sold flour in cloth sacks. The sacks she made her clothes from. The company that dressed her sold the can that killed her recipe. So in one generation, a motion she repeated 300 mornings a year vanished. And today, bakers charge whole classes to teach what she called the touch. Number 19, the coffee can at the back of the stove. The salt never came from a spoon. It came from the hollow of her hand. A pinch, the hiss on hot grease, and she kept moving, without tasting. She seasoned meat the night before, never in the moment. And at the back of the stove, always, the coffee can of bacon grease. That wasn't trash. That was the flavor. One spoonful changed a whole pot of beans, but then came the little packet, the measuring already done by somebody else. So a pallet that took years got traded for a barcode. And now, chefs charge good money to teach what she did. Salt your meat hours ahead. They gave it a technical name. She was 12. She just knew. Salt your meat tonight, cook it tomorrow. You'll taste it. But all that grease came from one place. And that place only opened one day a year. Number 18, the first cold morning in November. There was a saying, November, meat never spoils. And that morning, nobody slept in. The fire under the big, black pot before sunrise. Neighbors, cousins, the whole road. And nothing got thrown away. The hams went into a wooden box, packed in salt, to cure for months. The fat rendered into lard. The bottom of the pot was the cracklins. Sausage got made deep into the night, and the children stayed up, because that one night, nobody sent them to bed. But then came the freezer and the supermarket, which sold us the pretty cuts and kept ours. So today, oxtail costs more than steak. The parts nobody wanted are now the expensive ones. And fancy restaurants call it nose to tail, like they invented it. Ask the butcher for the cut nobody asked for. It costs half. With that pantry, a 12-year-old fed 8, and the cooking wasn't the hard part. Number 17, 8 dishes and 1 stove. Mama cleaned another woman's kitchen until 6. So the kitchen at home was the girls, and the hard part wasn't the cooking. It was the sequence. Beans soaking overnight. Greens simmering low with the smoked meat. 4 hours. And the cornbread last, always, so it hit the table hot. One stove doing 3 jobs at once. Every step ordered in her head. 8 dishes. No recipe. No timer. But in 1954 came the frozen dinner in the aluminum tray, made for the television. So the 1 hour when the whole family sat together got broken. And the studies today are clear. Kids who eat dinner at the table with their parents do better in school and carry less anxiety. Science took 50 years to catch up. 1 night a week, everybody seated. And when the kitchen was done, she reached for the needle. The dress she was wearing had been 4 flour sacks. Number 16. 4 flour sacks and 1 dress. Flour, sugar, and feed came in cotton sacks. And the mills figured it out before anybody. They started printing them with flowers, with checks, because they knew who picked the brand in that house. Not the man, her. 100-pound sack gave about a yard of fabric. 4 matching sacks made 1 dress. And the women traded sacks until somebody had 4 of the same print. The logo soaked out in the wash. And this was not small. In 1946, close to 8% of all the cotton produced in this country ended up inside a feed sack. But by the early 60s, flour moved to paper. Cheaper for the mill. So the fabric stopped coming into the house. And with it, the habit of looking at everything twice before throwing it out. Today, designers give talks about circular fashion. We called it Tuesday. Sewing the dress was easy. The hard part lived inside a cookie tin. Number 15. The cookie tin with 20 years of buttons. Nobody threw out a shirt over a button. On a shelf sat a metal cookie tin full of loose buttons from 2 decades. And at the bottom, the darning needle. A sock with a hole got stretched over a light bulb, and she wove it shut. Clothes were bought 2 sizes big, and the hem came down as the child grew. 1 garment dressed 3 siblings. But then came cheap clothes, $5 for a t-shirt. At that price, the thread cost more than the shirt. So today, we throw away 3 times more clothing than in 1960, and almost nobody can sew a button. She could at 9. And today's sustainability talks are describing, without knowing it, her cookie tin. Save the buttons that fall off. Start your own tin. But before you could mend a shirt, you had to wash it. And that was the hardest day of the week. Number 14. Monday smelled like octagon. Monday, wash day, the whole day. Water hauled in buckets, the same black pot from hog killing back over the fire. The whites boiled in it. And the soap? She made it. Hog fat saved for months, mixed with lye from wood ashes. When there was money, you bought a bar. Octagon by Colgate, grated like cheese into the hot water. Or Fell's naphtha in the yellow wrapper. The washboard against her stomach. Her knuckles on the ridges. 12. And her arms already answered like a grown woman's. But then came the electric washer. So the work didn't leave. The knowledge left. Octagon isn't made anymore. But Fell's naphtha is still in the same aisle. For about $2. Rub the dry bar on the stain before you wash. It works exactly like it did then. And what got washed on Monday got pressed for Sunday. And that was not about clean. Number 13. The blue box of Argo. Slow down here because this was a declaration. The starch came in a blue box, Argo. It cooked until it thickened. The shirt went in whole and dried stiff as a board. Then the iron, solid metal, no cord, heated on the fire. You spit on it. If the spit danced, it was ready. And you pressed until that collar stood up on its own. You could have nothing. But on Sunday, that family walked out the door, immaculate. But then came polyester, clothes that came out of the dryer ready to wear. So we lost something much bigger than the motion. The idea that showing up sharp in front of your own people was respect, not showing off. Sociologists write whole books now about those Sunday photographs. We called it going to church. It wasn't vanity. It was dignity. And that starch clothing went somewhere very particular. We'll get there. First, out the back door. Number 12, the second paycheck out back. The garden out back was not a hobby. It was money you didn't have to earn. And it ran like a clock. Collards in the cool months, and collards taste better after the first frost. Corn and okra in the heat. Sweet potatoes that kept for months in a dark bin. She planted in waves, so it didn't all come the same week. And she could look at one leaf and tell if a plant needed water or sun. But then came the supermarket, open 12 months a year, with tomatoes in January. So we stopped knowing what month our own food grows in. And now, nutritionists tell us to eat seasonal, local, fresh-picked, farm to table. And they charge for it. She ate what there was, when there was. Free. A bucket, some dirt, 3 plants. That's where it starts. And what didn't get eaten in August went into a jar. And that jar made a sound. Number 11, the sound the pantry made in August. The kitchen at 100 degrees, and her, 12 years old, packing the entire summer into glass. The jars, Ball brand, got boiled first, filled to 1 finger of air at the top, lid on, into the boiling water. And then the best part, as they cooled, you heard it. Pop, one after another, sometimes in the middle of the night. Every pop was a jar that had sealed, a meal guaranteed for January, the shelves full before the cold came. But then came the freezer and the can at the store. So we lost the habit of looking at the whole year ahead. And now, an entire industry sells self-sufficiency courses by subscription. She called it August. Refrigerator pickles need no boiling. Vinegar, water, salt, sugar. 20 minutes. And on those same shelves stood other jars. Those weren't food. One is in your bathroom right now. Number 10, the jar that's still in your bathroom. Castor oil, the spoon, and the face you made. They say it was for everything. The cold, the stomach, whatever ailed you, and the others. Onion with sugar for a cough, the mustard plaster, sassafras tea, the turpentine rag at the throat. And here we have to be honest, because respecting her means telling the truth. Not all of it worked. Turpentine is toxic, and sassafras got banned from food in the early 60s. But plenty of it did work. Castor oil, cocoa butter, shea. They're on your bathroom shelf today, in a pretty jar with a new label. The price multiplied by 10. So they never gave her the credit. They handed her the bill. And the real question isn't whether she was always right. It's this: when no doctor comes, who heals? Because the doctor didn't come. He never came. Number 9. The house was the hospital. In the South in the 1940s, plenty of hospitals would not take us. The ones that did put us in the basement. So the house was the hospital. And the nurse was 12. She knew how to bring a fever down with the cool rag at the neck and wrists. How to get up at 3 in the morning unbidden, because she had heard the breathing change from the next room. And she knew how to sit and be there when there was nothing left to do. But then came the facility, the room with the closed door. So today, people die among strangers. And now, there is a whole profession built around this, palliative care, whose first principle is that people should die at home, surrounded by their own. Nobody invented that. We were already doing it. And you don't learn it from any book. You learn it by watching. Remember that phrase. Number 8, Miss Ruthie, Mr. Willie, and Big Mama. Yes, ma'am. No, sir. No grown person on that street got called by their first name alone. It was Miss Ruthie, Mr. Willie, Big Mama. Even if she wasn't blood at all, you did not talk back. And if she tried it on a neighbor's porch, the neighbor had full permission to correct her right there, and then tell her mother. Punished twice. One child had 10 mothers. But then came the closed-up house. The "don't you talk to my child like that." So, the net broke. Today, we raise alone what a whole street raised together. And researchers have measured that neighborhoods where adults correct each other's children have less crime and better grades. We called it raising a child. It wasn't harshness. It was coverage. That child knew he was watched because he was loved. And that whole street gathered in one place, one day a week. Number 7, 3 hours on a wooden pew. Remember the starch shirt from number 13? This is where it went. 3 hours, sometimes 4, on a hard wooden pew, nothing in her hands. And this got learned without anyone explaining it. Be still, back straight, hands in her lap, eyes forward, even when she didn't understand half the sermon. Nobody handed her a device. She learned to be bored among 200 people who knew her by name. But then came the permanent noise, the screen in the hand of a 4-year-old. So we lost the skill that holds up all the others, being still without needing a stimulus. And now, psychologists call it self-regulation, and they say it predicts a child's future better than IQ. We called it Sunday. 20 minutes, seated, no screen, not you, not the child. And she needed that stillness, because Monday morning, the house was hers. Number 6, the baby on her hip. This was not helping out. This was full responsibility. At 12, that girl carried 3 or 4 little ones. Cloth diapers, which means she washed them by hand and boiled them. She fixed the bottle, tested it on her wrist, dressed and combed her sisters before school. And she knew a hungry cry from a fever cry. Nobody taught her that in words. She'd been hearing it since she was 6. But then came the separated life, the daycare, the family of 2. So today, there are adults holding their first baby, having never once held a newborn. And now, anthropologists have a word for it: cooperative childcare. They say the isolated household is the exception in human history, not the rule. She had raised 4 before she finished high school, and that's why, when Mama was gone, the house didn't fall, and she was gone a lot. Number 5, the house standing at 7 p.m. because Mama was cleaning another family's house or minding another woman's children across town. So the one running that house was 12. Monday, wash. Saturday, baths and hair. Half a day, by itself. The hot comb heating on the stove. She had the fire lit, food on the table, the little ones asleep before the front door opened. And here's the part almost nobody says out loud. When that mother walked in at 7, worn through, she found a house standing. She didn't have to say a word. Just look around. That was the language they loved each other in. But that world ended. So today, we call a 30-year-old an adult. She was 1 at 12. None of this ever paid her a dime. And still, she knew what every penny was worth, because she carried the groceries. Number 4, the envelopes in the drawer. At 12, she knew the rule. A grown adult with 2 incomes doesn't know today. If the money wasn't there, you didn't buy it. The money got divided before it got spent. Paper envelopes in a drawer, each with a word in pencil. Rent, food, the burial insurance, and the church offering, which came out first. Always. When an envelope was empty, it was over. You did not touch the one next to it, and you didn't buy by the package. You bought by the sack. 100 pounds at a time. Cheaper by the pound. And the sack dressed you. But in 1958, this country got its first general-purpose credit card. Buy now, pay later. So today, a family earns far more than hers did and comes up shorter at the end of the month. And now, financial advisors sell the envelope method in APS by subscription. She did it with a drawer and a pencil. Grab 3 envelopes this week, write what they're for, and don't touch the one next door. And whatever was left never went to a bank because the bank didn't want us. Number 3, the hand. They denied us the account, the loan, the mortgage, block by block, with a red pencil. So we built our own. It was called the hand, the susu, the box. 10 women, each puts in $1 a week, and every week, one takes home all 10, until everyone has been paid. No interest, no paperwork. All it took was your word. And here is what no bank has ever matched. Almost nobody defaulted, because you weren't failing a bank. You were failing Miss Ruthie, 3 doors down, who would see you Sunday at church. Those $10 paid for a funeral, a sewing machine, the first month's rent up north. But then came modern banking. So we stopped putting our money in the hands of people we knew by name. And today, economists study this in universities. We called it the hand, and it ran without writing down a single number. Number 2, she had the total before the grocer did. At the corner store, that girl added while the man filled the bag. And she knew what it should cost before he said the price, because there was a reason to know. It is said some storekeepers rounded up when a black child walked in, and families knew which store did and which did not. They warned each other on the porch. So arithmetic was not a school subject. It was self-defense. She figured the exact change and said it out loud before he did. Voice low, eyes down. But she said it. But then came the register, and later the screen that just tells you what you owe. So we handed over the last control we had over what we're charged. She didn't trust the number they gave her, and she had her reasons. Now pay attention. In that store, she was learning something else entirely. And that is number 1. Number 1. And it is not a chore. It's reading a room. Nobody taught it out loud. It was learned by watching her mother. She watched how Mama's voice changed, crossing the doorway of that store. Half an octave up, softer, smaller. How her hand squeezed twice. Hush now. Not one more word. Which man got a greeting and which one didn't? And she crossed to the other side too, without asking why. At 12, that girl could read a room in 3 seconds. Who was dangerous? Who was decent? When to speak? When to look at the floor? When to slip out the back? And now you understand why this is number 1. The biscuits, the dress, the garden, the remedies, the envelopes. None of it was worth a thing if you didn't make it home. The other 19 kept her alive. This one kept her safe. And it's the one we teach worst today, because it hurts, and because so many of us prayed our children would never need it. But ask any black mother whether she still teaches it before her son walks out the door. She's going to tell you yes. That girl grew old, and she didn't teach you a single one of these 20 things. Not because she forgot. She remembered everyone until her last day. She kept quiet, out of love. She broke her back cleaning other people's houses so you'd never have to make soap from hog fat. Every skill she didn't pass down was a victory. But she didn't count on one thing, on you missing her. And there's something I haven't told you. In all 20 of those chores, she never threw anything away. Not the water the greens cooked in, not the bacon grease, not a button, not the last coin-sized sliver of soap pressed onto the next bar so it wouldn't be lost. That wasn't a chore. That was an entire way of seeing the world. And it had its own rules. 25 of them. They're on your screen right now. Start with 25. You'll recognize it before I finish saying it.